Thanks for joining us in Business as we feature people, ideas and companies that move financial markets. In business with me, Harsha Subramaniam. This is on top of our agenda. An exclusive conversation with Rahul Khullar of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. We talk earnings and business outlook with Narsingh Rao of Coal India. And where are the bond markets headed? Hari here of First Rand Bank will join us later on the show. But first, the telecom regulator, the chairman of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, or the TRAI, Rahul Khullar, admits in hindsight that the reserve price for the recent 2G auctions was set too high. We caught up with him for this exclusive conversation and began by asking him what his reaction was to the claims that the recent spectrum auctions were an utter failure.
It's not the price of spectrum that's the problem. The problem is that the industry is carrying large legacy costs, and it's not being able to deal with those legacy costs. Therefore, the problem lies elsewhere. If you want to blame it on the price of spectrum, you can, but that's a very silly way of going about it. And that I still stand by. Now, really speaking, what your question is pointing to is that it's not the impact on tariffs that was really the important issue. And that is correct, because that was the bogey raised by the telecom providers at that time. The substantive issue which you are really raising was the price too high? And I think 1 year down the road, all of us are a little wiser about that. And in retrospect, perhaps it is correct to say that the reserve price was set a little too high. And that, for the moment, I think, is all I will say on that issue. On the question of the impact on the industry, it's not that the auctions were a dud, as you put it, meaning people did buy spectrum. But you are correct about two things. Number one, the 900 megahertz spectrum never got sold. Two, in the second round, even 1800 megahertz spectrum didn't get sold. And to that extent, there is a problem. Now, I think the much larger answer to these questions is that pricing of spectrum has to be seen with respect to market conditions and the overall condition of the economy. It is not an absolute at any point of time.
One thing that we saw increasingly, and you raised this point even when we last spoke, even back then, that excessive litigation is slowing down the industry. That was the exact words that you used. What we've seen eventually is it only getting worse. Today, pretty much every decision that is coming out on the policy front is being challenged in some court or the other. I'm sure you would say that's a very unhealthy thing, but how does one tackle that from an industry point of view?
Let me say two things. I think this is one of those very peculiar industries which is a house divided by technology, which is a point I've made again and again. And I think those sort of internal disputes or intra-industry disputes between one corporate and another corporate have been a sort of way of life for the industry for the last 10 years. And so you continue to see that sort of legal strife. And I think much of that is unnecessary. And now that people are recognizing what we recognized last year when I told you that the CDMA is a dying technology, perhaps as it indeed dies out, you will see less of this intra-corporate or intra-industry, but inter-corporate warfare. I think the second set of litigation has been industry versus the regulator and industry versus the government. Industry versus the regulator, I think, maybe I'm paying myself too much tribute here, but I think that has calmed down a bit. It's not as nasty nor as vitiated as it used to be before. And I think on the whole it has reduced. But I'm subject to correction. I don't wish to claim credit where it's not due to us. But I think the other litigation which has increased significantly is industry vis-a-vis government. And I think a lot of that has to do with the state of the economy and the state of the industry. When the industry was in good times, even a tough decision taken by the government, you would sort of swallow it. But when you're on bad times, you start questioning, good or bad, whatever the decision is, you're going to start questioning it. So I think that explains why that litigation has indeed increased. I think that it's very important, and at least we in the regulatory office have tried to do that, is to talk to industry more openly rather than surprise and awe, or shock and awe as the case may be, through regulation. That has, to my assessment, worked a bit. I think the industry is gradually improving. Its economic conditions are improving. But that does not mean the end of litigation. Also, I think that, and this is with all due respect to all judicial authorities, I think a little circumspection is required before you start entering into all manner of cases. Very often what drives a case to a judicial tribunal or a judicial court, as the case may be driven by an agenda which is both political and economic, and not necessarily requiring settlement of any major legal principle or any matter of law.
Mincing no words, the telecom regulator, you can catch the full interview at noon only on Bloomberg TV India exclusive. We check on how the markets are faring at this point in time.